Hey YouTube, this is Rasmussen Park Fan 62. It is Tuesday, July the 29th at around 6:15. In today's video, I'm here to talk about an update on the Six Flags Corp post-merger. So, if you don't know what I'm talking about a year ago, a little over a year ago, Six Flags and Cedar Fair merged together into one big company. And with that, they combined both the Six Flags parks and the Cedar Fair parks together. I believe there's like 27, 28 parks altogether. And then along with various water parks, resorts, and a few other things in there. But it was in the past week that has made the news, and this is what I want to talk about. Michigan's Adventure has canceled their family-friendly Halloween event, Tricks and Eats, or Tricks, something like that. And then Six Flags Over Georgia and Six Flags Great Adventure has canceled their Holiday in the Park events, which, if you don't know what those are, is their Christmas event. And rumor is Carowinds, Kings Island, and another ones are on the chopping block. So let's talk about that for a minute. First, let's start with Michigan's Adventure for their Halloween. It's surprising because, from what I understand, it was fairly popular. So I'm not entirely sure why it got canceled only after like 3 years, unless it just wasn't bringing in the money that they thought. Because last year, for example, it started like September 14th or something like that, and it went through October 14th. I question why it went to mid-October, but that's beside the point. From what I understand, it was somewhat popular during that time, but I'm sure staffing was probably an issue for it. But it's one of those things that we just don't know behind the scenes. We just don't know if they were popular, if it made money, or what. Now, with Over Georgia and Great Adventure canceling Winterfest, this is where it gets interesting. Because, let me start with Great Adventure. Great Adventure essentially has around 2 to 3 markets in that general area around the park. So you have the Philadelphia crowd, which is only like a couple hours down the road. Then you have the New York crowd, and all of that. So that is the interesting thing, because essentially post-Halloween, Dorning is closed, but the only other one that it really had to compete with was Hershey Park for their Christmas event. So it makes me wonder if Hershey's was taking theirs away, taking business from them, maybe because they were investing more into it. I'm not entirely sure. From what I heard from last year, there was a lot of days where Great Adventures was not that busy. But even then, you would think if they were not that busy, they wouldn't have opened, or they would close early or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. And it's worrying because now, essentially, the northeast part of the U.S., there's not a Christmas event up there, unless it's like a privately owned thing, or maybe like something like a zoo or something like that. Now let's go on down to Georgia. That one is surprising as well, because Over Georgia is one of their more busier parks in the chain. And it's south enough where theoretically they probably don't have to worry about as cold of a temperature as New Jersey. So with that, that is surprising. Also considering too, all of the Coca-Cola Christmas type stuff that they had in there. I believe also King's Dominion had stuff too. So that makes me wonder what is going to happen. Supposedly they're trying to keep Winterfest to the more southern based parks, which then that only leaves Magic Mountain, Fiesta Texas, Magic Mount, over Texas, and Knott's. And then supposedly this year, Discovery Kingdom is adding Winterfest. So, with that being said, that is only essentially 5 parks in the chain that are doing it compared to all of the others. And it's worrying because you have 5 parks out of like 27 that are doing it post Halloween. Now I'm going to get to America here in a second. But it is worrying the route that they're going, especially if Winterfest or Holiday in the Park was on the pass holder for pass holders, essentially. So that is the worrying thing. I get it's a business decision. They're trying to do what's best for the park as well as the company. But when you do this sort of thing and you're taking away more than you're adding, it's not a good look, especially for with pass renewal coming up. That literally starts tomorrow, the 31st, I believe it is, or Thursday, I'm sorry. So it's one of these things that is going to make you wonder. And unfortunately, it's putting a lot of these management for these parks in a tough position. because I'm sure they want to do Christmas events and all of that. But if corporate doesn't allow them to, unfortunately, they have to follow what corporate says. Now on to America. It essentially, it looks like with America, Fright Fest is done. And so they still are open past Labor Day, going into Halloween and closing weekend for the park, which is also closing forever. Past that, is to be unknown. But it looks like they are coming up with stuff to keep the park open. But at the same time, you have to wonder, is this a good idea? Because I'm sure there was people who were probably looking forward to Fright Fest. And maybe were wanting to be a scare actor. So, and the main problem with it is with America closing in the next several months. Was it just because, maybe they sold off all of the Fright Fest stuff to other parks? Maybe. Who knows? But it's one of these things you hate to hear. And the other problem with Over Georgia as well, I forgot to mention, is Dollywood is around 3.5 hours from Over Georgia. And Dollywood has been ranked as typically one of the best Christmas events out there in parks. So that doesn't help much for it either.